Ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying my videos, please click the like button. It is the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me. I would be very grateful to you. Gates of the Silent City, What Lies Beyond. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. The Dare. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the sleepy town of Willow Creek. Nestled amidst rolling hills and dense forests, it was the kind of place where secrets whispered through the rustling leaves and history lingered in the crumbling stones. It was here, on the outskirts of town, that a group of adventurous teenagers found themselves drawn to the forgotten graveyard. I was among them, a restless spirit with a hunger for adventure that burned brighter than the flickering flames of the dying day. My name is Alex, and on that fateful evening, I led my friends on a journey that would change our lives forever. As we trudged through the overgrown path leading to the graveyard, excitement crackled in the air like static electricity. Sarah, with her fiery red hair and mischievous grin, skipped ahead, her laughter mingling with the chorus of cicadas. Beside her, Mark, the skeptic of our group, muttered under his breath about the stupidity of our endeavor. But even he couldn't hide the gleam of curiosity in his dark eyes. The graveyard loomed before us, a tangled mess of ivy-covered headstones and crumbling mausoleums. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, sending shivers down my body. But instead of fear, I felt a thrill coursing through my veins. This was exactly what we had been searching for, a chance to push the boundaries of our mundane existence, to taste the forbidden fruit of adventure. "We shouldn't be here," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "Relax, Mark," I replied, my tone brimming with false bravado. "It's just a graveyard. What's the worst that could happen?" But even as I spoke the words, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. The stories whispered by the townsfolk echoed in my ears, tales of restless spirits and vengeful ghosts that haunted the graveyard after dark. I pushed the thoughts aside, refusing to let fear dictate our actions. Sarah skipped ahead, her eyes alight with excitement. "Come on, guys. Let's find the creepiest spot to spend the night." With a shared glance, Mark and I followed her deeper into the graveyard, our footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold. Shadows danced among the tombstones, their elongated forms twisting and writhing like specters in the dying light. We found our spot beneath an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches reaching towards the heavens like skeletal fingers. Sarah spread out a threadbare blanket, and we settled in for the night, the warmth of the fading sun fading into the cool embrace of the night. As darkness descended upon the graveyard, a chill settled in the air, sending shivers down my body. I glanced at Mark, his features illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. Despite his earlier protests, I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "We should go back," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. But it was too late. The dare had been made, and we were committed to seeing it through. With a stubborn nod, I ignored the voice of reason whispering in the back of my mind and settled in for the night, determined to prove that we were not afraid. Little did I know that our adventure was only just beginning, and that the graveyard held secrets far darker than we could ever imagine. Chapter 2. The Haunting History. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the graveyard as we huddled together beneath the ancient oak tree. The air was thick with anticipation as we delved into the graveyard's history, eager to uncover its darkest secrets. Sarah clutched a weathered journal in her trembling hands, its pages yellowed with age and filled with faded ink. "According to local legend," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, This graveyard was built over the remains of an ancient Native American burial ground. I shivered at the mention of restless spirits and cursed myself for ever suggesting this ill-fated adventure. But despite my misgivings, curiosity got the better of me, and I leaned in closer to hear Sarah's tale. Legend has it that the land was cursed by a powerful shaman, she continued, her eyes wide with excitement. He placed a hex on anyone who dared disturb the sacred ground, condemning them to an eternity of torment. Mark scoffed at the notion of curses and hexes, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his voice. "That's just this silly superstition," he insisted, though I could see the doubt lingering in his eyes. But as we delved deeper into the graveyard's history, it became clear that there was more to the legend than met the eye. We uncovered chilling tales of murder, betrayal, and restless spirits that lurked in the shadows, waiting to exact their revenge on unsuspecting trespassers. Strange occurrences began to happen, heightening the tension among the group and setting the stage for darker revelations. Shadows danced among the tombstones, their movements fluid and unnatural. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of long-forgotten whispers. I could feel the weight of the graveyard pressing down on me, suffocating me with its oppressive presence. Fear clawed at the edges of my mind, threatening to consume me whole. But I refused to give in to the darkness, clinging to the flickering flame of hope that burned within me. "We need to get out of here," Mark insisted, his voice tinged with panic. "This place is cursed, I'm telling you." But it was too late. The graveyard had sunk its claws into us, trapping us in its web of deceit and despair. With each passing moment, the shadows grew darker, the whispers grew louder, until it felt as though we were drowning in a sea of darkness. And then, just as I feared we would be lost to the graveyard forever, a figure emerged from the darkness, a ghostly apparition with eyes as cold as ice and a voice that echoed with the fury of 1,000 lost souls. "You dare disturb the sacred ground," it hissed. Its voice scared my soul. "You will pay for your trespasses with your very souls." I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare and never look back. But as the ghostly figure advanced, its form flickering in the moonlight, I knew that there was no escape from the horrors that lurked within the graveyard's haunted embrace. Chapter 3: Midnight Whispers. The graveyard was alive with whispers, the night air thick with the weight of unseen eyes watching our every move. As we huddled together beneath the ancient oak tree, the oppressive atmosphere pressed down on us like a suffocating blanket, making it impossible to escape the eerie sense of dread that hung in the air. I tossed and turned on the threadbare blanket, the whispers of the night echoing in my ears like a haunting melody. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of branches, scared my soul, and I knew that sleep would elude me tonight. Beside me, Sarah clutched her journal tightly to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. It sounded like someone or something was whispering our names. I shook my head, though I couldn't deny her words. "It's just your imagination playing tricks on you," I insisted, though even I couldn't muster the conviction to believe my own words. Mark lay opposite us, his brow furrowed with worry. "I don't like this," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of nocturnal sounds. "We shouldn't have come here." But his words fell on deaf ears as the graveyard closed in around us, suffocating us with its oppressive presence. Paranoid fears and tensions rose as each member of the group grappled with their own personal demons and insecurities, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. "I can't take this anymore," Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I feel like I'm being watched." I reached out to comfort her, but before I could speak, a sudden gust of wind scared me. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of long-forgotten whispers. "We need to leave," Mark insisted, his voice tinged with panic. "Before it's too late." But even as he spoke the words, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, a ghostly apparition with eyes as cold as ice and a voice that echoed with the fury of 1,000 lost souls. "You cannot leave," it hissed. Its voice really scared me. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground, and now you must pay the price." I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare and never look back. But as the ghostly figure advanced, its form flickering in the moonlight, I knew that there was no escape from the horrors that lurked within the graveyard's haunted embrace. And so we remained, trapped in a waking nightmare as the whispers of the night grew louder, each word dripping with malice and despair. Midnight had come, and with it, the true horrors of the graveyard were revealed, horrors that would haunt us for the rest of our days. Chapter 4. Uncovering Clues. The dawn broke over the graveyard, casting long shadows across the worn tombstones and tangled undergrowth. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the darkness, we emerged from our fitful slumber, weary and unsettled by the events of the night before. But despite our growing unease, curiosity gnawed at the edges of our minds, urging us to press forward in search of answers. And so, with weary hearts and trembling hands, we set out to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within the graveyard's ancient embrace. It was Sarah who first stumbled upon the clue, a weathered parchment buried beneath a mound of fallen leaves, its edges frayed with age and stained with the passage of time. With trembling hands, she brushed away the debris to reveal a faded map, its lines etched with intricate detail and cryptic symbols. "What is it?" Mark asked, his voice tinged with curiosity as he peered over Sarah's shoulder. "It looks like a map," she replied, her eyes wide with excitement. "But I can't make heads or tails of it." I studied the map intently, my mind racing with possibilities. "Perhaps it's a clue," I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. "A breadcrumb left behind by whoever or whatever haunts this graveyard." Mark scoffed at the notion, but even he couldn't deny the sense of urgency that gripped us. With newfound determination, we set out to unravel the mysteries of the map, our footsteps echoing through the silent graveyard as we followed its cryptic instructions. The map led us deeper into the heart of the graveyard, past forgotten tombs and crumbling mausoleums, until we reached a secluded clearing hidden amidst the trees. At its center stood a weathered statue, its features worn smooth by the passage of time, its outstretched hand pointing towards the heavens. "This must be it," Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with awe as she approached the statue. "The final clue." But as she reached out to touch the statue, a sudden gust of wind sent a shiver down my soul. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of long-forgotten whispers. "We shouldn't be here," Mark muttered, his voice tinged with fear. "This place is cursed, I'm telling you." But his words fell on deaf ears as we pressed forward, our curiosity outweighing our growing unease. With each passing moment, the tension grew thicker until it felt as though we were walking on a knife's edge, teetering on the brink of disaster. And then, just as we reached out to touch the statue, a blinding light erupted from its outstretched hand, illuminating the clearing in a dazzling display of color and sound. I shielded my eyes against the glare, my heart pounding in my chest as the ground beneath us began to tremble. With a deafening roar, the earth split open before us, revealing a hidden chamber buried deep beneath the graveyard's ancient embrace. And as we peered into the darkness below, we knew that our quest for answers had only just begun. Chapter 5. Descent in Madness. The chamber yawned before us, its darkness swallowing us whole as we peered into its depths. With trepidation coursing through our veins, we descended into the bowels of the earth, each step echoing through the cavernous space like a death knell. The graveyard's malevolent influence hung heavy in the air, its oppressive presence pressing down on us like a suffocating weight. Hallucinations danced at the edges of my vision, twisting and writhing like phantoms in the darkness. I blinked, trying to dispel the images, but they only grew stronger, taunting me with their ephemeral beauty. Sarah stumbled ahead, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she clutched the map tightly to her chest. "We need to keep going," she insisted, her voice tinged with desperation. "There's something down here, something waiting for us." I nodded, though my heart pounded in my chest with a fear I could not name. The line between reality and illusion blurred as we pressed forward, each step taking us deeper into the heart of darkness. And then, just as I feared we would be lost to the madness that lurked within the depths of the earth, we stumbled upon a chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. Strange symbols adorned the walls, their meaning lost to the passage of time, while a lone figure stood at its center, its form flickering in the dim light. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, but the figure remained, its features shifting and changing with each passing moment. It beckoned to us, its voice a whisper in the darkness, and I knew that we had no choice but to obey. We approached the figure cautiously, our hearts pounding in our chests as we awaited its judgment. But instead of fear, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, as though I had finally found the answers I'd been searching for. The figure spoke, its voice echoing through the chamber like the tolling of a funeral bell. "You have come seeking answers," it intoned, its words carrying with them the weight of centuries. "But the truth you seek is not easily obtained." But the figure remained silent, its form flickering in the dim light. And as I reached out to touch it, it dissolved before my eyes, leaving nothing but a lingering sense of emptiness in its wake. We stood in silence, the weight of our failure pressing down on us like a tombstone. The graveyard's malevolent influence had taken its toll on our sanity, pushing us to the brink of madness with its hallucinations and nightmares. And as we stumbled back to the surface, I knew that the true horror of our ordeal lay not in the darkness that lurked within the earth, but in the darkness that lurked within our own minds. Chapter 6. Confronting the Past. The sun hung low on the horizon as we emerged from the depths of the graveyard, our minds reeling from the horrors we had witnessed. But despite our weariness, a sense of urgency pulsed through our veins, driving us forward in search of answers. As we stumbled through the overgrown path leading back to town, a figure emerged from the shadows, a ghostly apparition with eyes as cold as ice and a voice that echoed with the fury of 1,000 lost souls. "You dare disturb the sacred ground," it hissed, its voice sending fear my soul. "You will pay for your trespasses with your very souls." I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare, and never look back. But as the ghostly figure advanced, its form flickering in the dying light, I knew that there was no escape from the horrors that lurked within the graveyard's haunted embrace. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, her voice tinged with defiance as she stepped forward to confront the ghostly apparition. But the figure remained silent, its gaze boring into us with an intensity that made my blood run cold. And as it reached out to touch us, a sense of dread washed over me, as though I was about to confront something far darker than I had ever imagined. And then, just as I feared we would be lost to the darkness that lurked within the graveyard, the figure dissolved before our eyes, leaving nothing but a lingering sense of emptiness in its wake. We stood in silence, the weight of our encounter pressing down on us like a tombstone. Trust fractured as secrets were revealed, testing the bonds of friendship to their limits. "I know what we saw," Mark insisted, his voice tinged with desperation. "That was a ghost, a spirit, trapped between worlds." But even as he spoke the words, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. Had we truly encountered a ghost, or was it merely a figment of our fevered imaginations? Sarah shook her head, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And as we stumbled back to town, the weight of our encounter hung heavy in the air, casting a pall over our once unbreakable bond. For we had confronted the past, a past filled with darkness and despair, and in doing so, had uncovered truths far more terrifying than we could have ever imagined. Chapter 7. Shadows of Doom. The air hung heavy with the weight of impending doom as we returned to Willow Creek, the events of our encounter with the ghostly figure still fresh in our minds. But as the days passed, it became increasingly clear that sinister forces from the graveyard's past were not content to remain confined within its boundaries. Strange occurrences plagued us at every turn, each one more sinister than the last. Shadows danced at the edges of our vision, twisting and writhing like malevolent spirits seeking to drag us into the darkness. Whispers echoed through the halls of our school, their words filled with malice and deceit. "We're being targeted," Sarah insisted, her voice tinged with fear as she glanced nervously over her shoulder. "Someone or something is watching us." I nodded in agreement, though the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. "We need to stay together," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't let whatever is out there tear us apart." But even as I spoke the words, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. Could we truly trust each other in the face of such overwhelming darkness, or were we destined to be consumed by the shadows that lurked within our own souls? As the days turned into weeks, the tension among us grew thicker, each member of our group grappling with their own personal demons and insecurities. Trust fractured as suspicions ran rampant, casting a pall over our once unbreakable bond. And then, just when it seemed as though things couldn't get any worse, a figure emerged from the shadows, a ghostly apparition with eyes as cold as ice and a voice that echoed with the fury of 1,000 lost souls. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground," it hissed, its voice shivers down my soul. "And now you will pay the price." I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare and never look back. But as the ghostly figure advanced, its form flickering in the dim light, I knew that there was no escape from the shadows that lurked within the depths of our own souls. And so we stood, united in our fear, as the shadows closed in around us, each one darker than the last. For we had navigated a labyrinth of shadows and deception, unsure of who or what to believe, and in doing so, had uncovered truths far more terrifying than we could have ever imagined. Chapter 8. Bargaining with Darkness. The weight of darkness pressed down on us like a suffocating blanket as we grappled with the sinister forces that haunted Willow Creek. With each passing day, the whispers grew louder, the shadows darker, until it felt as though we were drowning in a sea of despair. Desperation gnawed at the edges of my mind as I watched my friends struggle under the weight of our shared burden. Sarah paced the room, her eyes wild with fear, while Mark retreated into himself, his features drawn and haunted by the horrors we had witnessed. "We can't go on like this," I insisted, my voice tinged with frustration. "We need answers, and we need them now." But the silence that greeted my words spoke volumes, each member of our group lost in their own private hell. And as the days turned into weeks, it became increasingly clear that we were running out of time. In a desperate bid for answers, I turned to the only source of knowledge I could find, the ghostly apparition that haunted our every waking moment. With trembling hands, I reached out to touch the darkness, my heart pounding in my chest with a fear I could not name. "Tell me what you want," I pleaded, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do anything, just give me the answers I seek." And then, just when it seemed as though all hope was lost, a voice echoed through the darkness, a voice filled with malice and deceit, promising answers in exchange for a dangerous bargain. I hesitated, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. But the weight of desperation pushed me forward, driving me to make a pact with the darkness that lurked within the depths of my own soul. The group was torn apart as they struggled to reconcile my betrayal with their own survival instincts. Sarah pleaded with me to reconsider, her voice filled with desperation and fear, while Mark turned his back on me, unable to forgive the betrayal that had torn our group apart. But even as the rift between us widened, I knew that I had made my choice. I had bargained with darkness in a desperate bid for answers, and now I would have to face the consequences of my actions. As I stepped into the darkness, I knew that there was no turning back, for I had chosen to confront the shadows that haunted Willow Creek, even if it meant sacrificing everything, even my own soul, in the process. Chapter 9. Revelation and Redemption. The truth hung heavy in the air as darkness descended upon Willow Creek, casting long shadows over the sleepy town. We stood on the edge of oblivion, our hearts heavy with the weight of the secrets we had uncovered. The graveyard's curse had been unveiled, revealing a truth more shocking than any of us could have ever imagined. It was not a curse born of ancient magic or vengeful spirits, but of human greed and betrayal. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, I felt a sense of numbness wash over me, as though I had been plunged into icy waters with no hope of resurfacing. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, but swallow it we must if we were to have any hope of redemption. "We have to stop this," Sarah insisted, her voice filled with determination as she stared into the darkness. "We can't let the sins of the past destroy us." I nodded in agreement, though the weight of our task pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. The darkness that had haunted us for so long threatened to consume us all, and if we were to stand any chance of survival, we would have to confront it head-on. With newfound resolve, we set out to confront the darkness that lurked within the heart of Willow Creek, each step bringing us closer to the truth that had eluded us for so long. And as we delved deeper into the shadows, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me, as though I had finally found my purpose in the chaos that surrounded us. The truth was more terrible than any of us could have ever imagined, a tale of greed and betrayal that stretched back centuries, its tendrils reaching into every corner of our lives. But even in the face of such darkness, there was hope that we could overcome the sins of the past and forge a new path forward. As we stood on the edge of oblivion, the weight of our burden pressing down on us like a suffocating blanket, I knew that we had come too far to turn back now. The darkness that threatened to consume us all could only be defeated by the light of truth and redemption. And so, with hearts filled with courage and determination, we faced the darkness head-on, ready to confront the shadows that haunted Willow Creek and emerge victorious on the other side. For we were not alone, we had each other, and together we would conquer the darkness that threatened to consume us all. Chapter 10. Race Against Time. The clock was ticking, each passing moment bringing us closer to our inevitable doom. With the curse unleashed and the stakes higher than ever, We raced against time to break the curse and save ourselves from the darkness that threatened to consume us all. Every step we took was fraught with danger, every decision weighed down by the heavy burden of our shared fate. But we pressed forward, driven by a desperate need to confront our deepest fears and confront the true power of darkness. Sarah led the way, her determination shining like a beacon in the darkness. "We can't give up," she insisted, her voice filled with conviction as she urged us onward. "We have to keep going no matter what." I nodded in agreement, though the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. The road ahead was treacherous, filled with traps and pitfalls that threatened to ensnare us at every turn. But we had come too far to turn back. Now we had to see this through to the bitter end. As we delved deeper into the heart of darkness, I felt a sense of dread wash over me, as though we were walking into the jaws of a beast from which there could be no escape. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of long-forgotten whispers. But even in the face of such overwhelming darkness, there was a glimmer of hope, a faint light shining in the distance, beckoning us forward with its promise of salvation. And so we pressed on, our hearts filled with determination, as we raced against time to break the curse that threatened to consume us all. Every moment counted as we navigated the labyrinth of shadows and deception, each step bringing us closer to our ultimate goal. And as we confronted our deepest fears and confronted the true power of darkness, I knew that our fate was inextricably linked to the choices we made in the moments that lay ahead. With each passing moment, the darkness closed in around us, threatening to swallow us whole. But we refused to give in to despair. We were determined to fight until the bitter end, to break the curse and save ourselves from the fate that awaited us if we failed. And so we raced against time, our hearts pounding in our chests, as we fought against the darkness that threatened to consume us all. For we knew that the true power of darkness lay not in its ability to destroy, but in its ability to corrupt, and we would not let it claim us without a fight. Chapter 11. The Final Stand. The air crackled with tension as we stood on the precipice of the final battle, our hearts heavy with the weight of our shared destiny. In a climactic showdown against the source of the curse, the teenagers must band together to fight for their lives, knowing that the outcome would determine the fate of not just ourselves, but of all who dwelled in Willow Creek. As we gazed upon the source of our torment, a sense of dread washed over me, as though we were staring into the abyss itself. The darkness swirled around us, thick and suffocating, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare us in its icy embrace. But we refused to be cowed by fear. We had come too far to turn back now. With hearts filled with courage and determination, we squared our shoulders and prepared to face the darkness head-on. Sarah led the charge, her voice ringing out like a clarion call as she rallied us to action. "This ends now," she declared, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "We will not let the darkness claim us, not today, not ever." I nodded in agreement, though the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. The road ahead was treacherous, filled with traps and pitfalls that threatened to ensnare us at every turn. But we had faced darkness before, and we would face it again together. As we advanced upon the source of the curse, a sense of foreboding washed over me, as though we were walking into the jaws of a beast from which there could be no escape. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of long-forgotten whispers. But even in the face of such overwhelming darkness, there was a glimmer of hope, a faint light shining in the distance, beckoning us forward with its promise of salvation. And so we pressed on, our hearts filled with determination as we prepared to make our final stand. The battle was fierce and unforgiving, each blow striking like a hammer against an anvil. Sacrifices were made, alliances were tested, and the true meaning of friendship and courage was revealed in the crucible of combat. But through it all, we stood together, united in our determination to overcome the darkness that threatened to consume us all. And as the final blow was struck, and the source of the curse was vanquished, a sense of peace washed over me, as though a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For we had faced darkness and emerged victorious, our bonds of friendship stronger than ever before. And as we gazed upon the dawn of a new day, I knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, we would face them together, for we were not just friends, but warriors forged in the fires of adversity. Chapter 12. Beyond the Gates. The aftermath of the final showdown left us standing amidst the wreckage of our once peaceful town, forever changed by the harrowing journey we had endured. As we emerged from the darkness, the weight of our shared trauma pressed down on us like a heavy burden, casting a pall over our weary souls. We gathered in silence, our minds reeling from the horrors we had witnessed, the losses we had suffered. Each step we took was haunted by the memories of our journey through the depths of darkness. The faces of those we had lost etched into our minds like ghosts in the night. Sarah stood at the forefront, her gaze fixed on the horizon as she grappled with the enormity of our shared loss. "We can't stay here," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's nothing left for us in Willow Creek." I nodded in agreement, though the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. The town we had once called home lay in ruins, its streets empty and its buildings reduced to rubble. But even as we turned our backs on the graveyard that had haunted us for so long, I knew that the memories of our journey would stay with us forever. As we made our way beyond the gates of Willow Creek, a sense of peace washed over me, as though a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The air was thick with the scent of freedom, and a gentle breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning. But even as we left the graveyard behind, we carried with us the knowledge that some secrets are better left buried. The horrors we had witnessed, the losses we had suffered, they would forever be etched into our hearts, a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that lurked within the human soul. And so we pressed on, our hearts heavy with the weight of our shared trauma, but filled with hope for the future that lay ahead. For though we had faced darkness and despair, we had emerged stronger than ever before, united in our shared struggle, and forever bonded by the trials we had endured. As we journeyed into the unknown, I knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. But as long as we stood together, we would face whatever trials lay ahead, knowing that the bonds of friendship and courage forged in the fires of adversity would see us through to the end.